have you ever wanted a new interesting type of game server for City of Heroes that changes the gameplay mechanics just a little bit on how the server works? Well, Senpai came up with an idea of a permadeath game server where when your character ends up having to go to the hospital, instead of going to the hospital, the character gets deleted. I'm Controlled Chaos, and this video I'm going to go over this subject with Senpai and talk about how all this could work out. So Senpai, with that being said, go ahead and talk about the original idea that you had for the permadeath server.
Yeah, so my idea is that we would add a bleed out counter to characters so that resurrecting is still useful. Like it's still a power and you can resurrect people, but the bleed out counter would be faster than most resurrect powers can recharge. So a character that has like a self res couldn't just wait for the bleed out for their recharge, because then that would kind of defeat the purpose of like a permadeath server, because then it would just turn into the server where you have to wait for your resurrect to respawn instead of just going to the hospital. But I had the idea because I have a lot of features that I want to add to the server. And as a developer, it's really hard for me to add seemingly simple features just because like making it backwards compatible with older characters makes it really hard to add even simple things. Like I recently increased the scale of the face slider, and to do that, it was actually really hard to make that backwards compatible with other faces so I wouldn't distort other characters' faces. But if I had like a server that reset every 4 months or so and had permadeath, then and was like really fast paced where like you get an XP really fast and influence really fast, but death is permanent and the whole server resets every few months, that would make it a lot easier to rapidly develop new features and stuff. And we could do things like experiment with like the basic rule sets of the game. Like maybe one season we could make regeneration a flat 0% so nobody gets new regenerates hit points unless they have a hit point regen buff. Or we could do stuff like adjust the defense stats, or just like really big sweeping changes, and they would just be temporary for that season just to try them out.
So that's really interesting that not only would this be a permadeath server that would be separate, but it would also be a seasonal server that would get wiped every so often, with each season being different, making the server different. I think this is a really cool idea for the fact of, one, you're adding in permadeath, and the fact that you're adding in a bleed countdown to where resurrections are not as useful and that need to be used carefully and determining is a really cool idea. And I see some ideas going around that I want to touch on later, but I want to hit some of the other points that you brought up about the seasonality and being able to adjust things like regen and how that works on the game, and play around with other ideas to see what might work on the live server itself. I think that this whole entire idea could bring some players in that want a constant different feel to the City of Heroes game, and would be interesting. What I want to come back to is the idea of the bleed effect on the permadeath, and the fact that resurrect wouldn't constantly work. The way I was thinking you could do this is with having the enhancements as to make it sort of a mini game of timing of when you have your resurrect fully stacked with time reductions, you might have a split second to be able to res one person, wait the countdown timer, and res another person if those two people died at the exact same time. I think that'd be really interesting way to do something like that, but then not allow that for the self-reses. So the self-reses wouldn't get that capability, and in my eyes is how I'm seeing that. And that would make sort of a fun mechanic and a challenge for those resing type players that like playing those healers. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that the self reses would be really useful. They would still be very valuable because they would give you like a second chance occasionally if you die in like every mission or so, you can still resurrect yourself. So, the game isn't over yet. And then that would also make teamwork a lot more valuable too, because a character like Empathy Defender can't resurrect himself, but he could resurrect his allies, and you could enhance the regeneration, the recharge rate of your res, and that would be pretty harmless. And you wouldn't be able to resurrect yourself, so you'd still have to keep the defender safe, or else your lifeline would be gone.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I was thinking of with this whole entire thing of the permadeath is the fact that when you do that, the awaken inspiration, people would be carrying a couple of those on them and wouldn't unbalance anything, because when I did one episode of my community masterminds, I accidentally ran across a purple skull, died in front of them, used an awaken, and immediately died again. So there is that chance, because you're dazed when you get resurrected with an awaken, that you have to sort of play it very carefully and think things out using those awakens and what other things you might have to do, such as the one that breaks your days from the awaken and being really quick. So I think that'd be sort of an interesting way to also make the awaken more important for you to carry on your character. Do you agree, Senpai?
Yeah, I agree, and also that would make powers like Teleport Friend very valuable, because then you could get your allies out of danger so they can use an awaken on themselves without dying again. Or
Oh,
yeah, or you could at least like reset the counter, like if you have 1 second left before you're dead forever, then you can use an awaken, and that would reset your counter until somebody can come and save you.
Oh, that brings back memories. See, I used to play EverQuest, and I played a class called a Shadow Knight. And in EverQuest, when things went bad in a zone, you'd hear train to zone, and the whole entire zone would pretty much get wiped out. And when you died, all of your equipment was on your body, and you'd have to go back and get it, but be deep in the dungeon. So you would have certain classes like necromancers and shadow knights that could summon the corpse to the edge of the zone. And that's how shadow knights and necromancers made their money in the game, is people would pay them to summon their corpse to the edge of the zone so that they could safely loot their body and get their equipment back. So being able to teleport someone who just used an awaken to a safe area, that's a smart way to do things, and that could actually change the economy on the permadeath server. Do you agree?
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that the bleed out counter will help prevent people from just waiting. Because what I really want to avoid is like incentivizing people to just sit and wait for somebody to come and save them, or for them to be able to save themselves somehow. Like if it's just a matter of time, then that's what people will do. Because personally, I'm like a really OCD gamer. So in games like Fallout or like any Bethesda game, they'll always have a few bottle caps in every drawer or something, and I feel compelled to open every drawer I see, just in case there's a bottle cap in there. I don't even need them. I just feel like I need to open it so I can get the bottle caps, or I'm not playing optimally. So I don't want to even have the possibility that players could possibly wait for like 30 minutes for somebody to come save them. I want to keep things like really really fast paced, and have that risk there that you could possibly lose your character forever if you're not careful, at least for the quarter. You'd have to remake your character next quarter.
That's a really cool idea, because talking about being OCD with certain things, I'm that way when I play certain video games. When I play games like The Elder Scrolls or City of Heroes, where it has the different dungeons that you have to explore, I explore every single corner. I interact with everything I possibly can to just see what's in it. Just the curiosity. And so I'm the same way with you there. And I do agree with the bleed out counter having to be there, because that would make the permadeath server not feel as different if you didn't have the bleed out counter, because you are right. You would just sit there and wait for half an hour or an hour for someone to show up to res you, and you don't want that. That can be sort of boring. I mean, and once again, going back to EverQuest, there was a lot of sit down time of having to heal up and get mana back and stuff like that. It got boring, and people were just holding conversations that the developers actually put in a card game that the players could play in the game while they were sitting down waiting and healing up and getting their mana back, or waiting for respawn. And so adding in mechanics like that that reduce that wait time and stuff like that is really, really good. It's just like when I play other games where it's a lobby online game, I won't wait for more than 5 minutes for a match. If I have to wait longer than 5 minutes for a match, I quit the game. And so having that bleed out counter adds that restriction to the wait. And I think that would require a lot of balancing to work with the reses so that there's a bit of interesting gameplay mechanics there.
Yeah, I'm like the opposite really. I will wait, like, and I feel compelled to do it. Like I'm not even enjoying myself, but like for instance, I like Deep Rock Galactic. It's a game about mining, and have you ever played that before?
I've been wanting to play. I've seen it. I've wanted to play it. That game looks really, really interesting to me. I just haven't had the time, and when I've had the
Yeah.
time, I haven't had the money.
Yeah, say I would describe it as like a cross between Left 4 Dead and Minecraft because there's mining and it's like voxel based, so you can actually dig through the walls and stuff. And you're looking for minerals or whatever the objective is, like you have to find a certain kind of mushroom or something. But there's no incentive to get more than you actually need. And the whole time you're being attacked by waves of enemies, kind of like in Left 4 Dead. So, in Left 4 Dead, you have like usually 4 goals per map, like, you have to get to this checkpoint and then activate the alarm or something, and you have no incentive to just sit there and fight zombies all day. You have to get in and get out, and Deep Rock Galactic is a lot like that too, like, you have to get in and get out, but it's a lot like Minecraft where, like, in Minecraft, there's no time limit, and you can sit and just mine for coal all day. If you need coal, you can just sit there and mine for hundreds of units of coal, And I like both kinds of gameplay, but sometimes I need something to just kick my butt, and tell me to go. You can't wait here. You have to go.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm that way too. There's times I'm in the mood where I want some action and I want constant action. And so I'll play those games that give me that constant action. There's other times where I just want to sit back and I want to relax. And I want to calm down and do something relaxing. That's where I'll play some of these games like No Man's Sky. For me, is a game where I can just go and can explore and not have to worry that much about combat or anything really bad happening to my character. And then City of Heroes is just when I want to go out and I want to shoot stuff up and I want to feel like a hero and explore and have some randomization there. And I think with this permadeath, it would sort of add another level of interest and stakes to it that'd be really, really cool in the way it would work, in the fact that there's now risk to what I'm doing. It's not just a little bit of XP debt. I want a little bit more risk in my MMOs. I do personally miss the days of original EverQuest, where when you died, you could be working towards level 50. Finally, you get level 50, then you die and you lose level 50, and you have to run back and risk losing more of your level by trying to get your corpse back and getting that stuff off of your corpse. It caused a huge risk. So there was a lot of panic. And I think having a permadeath server for City Heroes would cause that risk and worry there. That's really, really interesting. And I like the idea. What would be the chances of this actually happening if a lot of people spoke up and said they want this?
Well, honestly, so I work on Thunderspy, and it's the Thunderspy City of Heroes server. And right now, we're focusing a lot on improving our tools, and we're adding a few little new features. But we're already sitting on a lot of new features. Like we're definitely objectively the most developed City of Heroes server with the most new features. So we thought that the last few months we wanted to just improve our development process and hone our tools and make things more streamlined so we can do even better in the future. So that's what we're focusing on right now, and I honestly, this is just an idea. I don't see us doing it this year, but
Mm.
possibly while I'm working on and improving my tools, if there's a big interest in this kind of hardcore permadeath server, I could definitely put in the resources for it. But I also think that the improvements I'm making to the back end will make something like this a lot easier because right now it's really hard to spin up a new City of Heroes server. It takes a lot of effort. So
Okay.
just trying to streamline that process will make it a lot easier to just frivolously throw up a server and then delete it later, every quarter or so.
Yeah, and so you basically need to make the tools to make this process of doing this seasonal server type idea for this permadeath server a reality. Well, I want to thank you, Senpai, for your time. And for you, those listening, this conversation actually started on my Discord server under the City Heroes general chat. So if you want to be seeing some of these discussions that are brought up by some of us developer minded people, or you have ideas, feel free to join my Discord and read what we had been talking about. And there's other ideas that we throw around and have fun with. And then there's also a series I'm going to be starting where I talk to developers about games and game ideas for City Heroes and No Man's Sky. So if you are a developer and have done development and want to join in on these roundtables and discussions, do join my Discord server and let me know you'd be interested in joining in on this type of series. It doesn't matter if you're from City Heroes, it doesn't matter if you're playing No Man's Sky. I just want to have some developers sitting around talking about fun gameplay ideas based on a theme of a game or something along that lines. I think it'd be interesting both for the development-minded people and the gameplay interested people that like hearing about new gameplay ideas. So I want to thank you all for listening in and have a great day.